For the purpose of this talk, I'll be using the word drug to encompass any activity or substance that causes us to feel craving, dependency, loss of time. Not just the obvious addictive substances, but things like social media, video games, internet, learning, reading, eating. It's less about the thing and more about the ability to manage our use. And I'll be using the word pain to encompass things like craving, boredom, anxiety, as well as the more physiological forms of suffering. I'll be quoting Dr. Anna Lembke, the author of Dopamine Nation, from her interview with Andre Duqum on the Know ThySelf podcast. I'll link the full talk here for you. I'll be focusing on her explanation of the neuroscience behind how dopamine works and how we can use that knowledge to our advantage to elevate our mindfulness practice and get more joy from the everyday things in life. Dr. Lembke says, dopamine is a chemical that we make in our brain and has lots of different functions. One of the most important functions is that it's essential for the experience of pleasure, reward, and motivation. It's not the only neurotransmitter involved in that process, but it is the final common pathway for all reinforcing or addicting substances and behaviors. The more dopamine that we release in our reward pathway, and the faster that we release it, the more likely that substance or behavior is to be reinforcing for us. We first have to understand the concept of homeostasis. Homeostasis is essentially our baseline level. In my words, it's our default setting, so our brains will always strive to return here after any deviation. The thing about pleasure and pain is that they're actually co-located in the brain. So the same parts of the brain that process pleasure also process pain. And they work like opposite sides of a balance. So imagine there's a beam on the central fulcrum, like a teeter-totter on a kid's playground. And when that beam is at rest, it's level, parallel with the ground, and that's called homeostasis. When we do something pleasurable, our pleasure-pain balance tips one way, and when we do something painful, it tips the other way. There's certain rules governing this balance, and the first and most important rule is that it wants to remain level with the ground. And our brains will work very, very hard with any deviation from that neutral position to get it back into that neutral position. So, for example, I read romance novels, my drug of choice, and that releases dopamine into the neurotransmitter in my reward pathway, and my pleasure-pain balance tilts to the side of pleasure. No sooner has that happened than my brain says, ding, 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 gotta bring that back into balance. It adapts to that increased dopamine by down-regulating dopamine transmission, a process called neuroadaptation. I like to imagine that as these little neuroadaptation gremlins. Let's personify them, hopping on the pain side of the balance to bring it level again. But the gremlins like it on the balance, so they don't get off as soon as it's level. They stay on until I'm tilted an equal and opposite side amount to the side of pain. That's the come down, the hangover, the blue Monday, or that moment of craving. Now, if we wait long enough in that state of craving, when we're in the come down part, those gremlins get the message, their job is done, they hop off, and a level balance or homeostasis is restored. The problem is, in this world of excess and easy access, the faster way back to homeostasis is just to have more of my drug. Start scrolling, grab a sugary snack, pour a drink, etc. Which we're very inclined to do because when we're in this tipped to pain state, we are in a state of craving. We're anxious, we're bored, we're restless, we're dysphoric, irritable, uncomfortable. It's easy to get some more of the good stuff and put it on the pleasure side and restore homeostasis. The problem is, if we continue to do that over days to months to weeks to years, those gremlins start to multiply. On the pain side of the balance, they get bigger, stronger. Pretty soon they're camped out there. And now we've entered addicted brain and we've changed our joy set point. We need more of our drug, not to get high and feel good, but just to level the balance and feel normal. And when we're not using it, we're walking around with a balance tilted to the side of pain, experiencing the universal symptoms of withdrawal from any addictive substance or activity, which are anxiety, irritability, insomnia, depression, and craving. And that's what drives reuse. End quote. Dr. Lembke goes on to explain, and I'm paraphrasing here, that this wiring was essential for our survival in ancient times, driving us to seek food and warmth, etc. But in those times, we had to work a lot harder for survival. Work for sustenance, work to have warmth and shelter. Essentially, we would have to pay up front for and experience the pain first. And the pleasure reward would come after. So our brains were built for pain. She suggests that our state of extreme abundance and stimulation now is essentially causing our brain to work overtime on balancing the pain side of things in an effort to offset all the comfort we are experiencing and keep us at homeostasis. The good news is there are many ways we can pay upfront for pleasure and learn to find joy and good feelings in neutrality. And we're already doing some of them. The idea is to apply some intentionality and mindfulness to those actions in effort to help our brains find that homeostasis a little easier. Some of the ways we can induce healthy stress and healthy discomfort into our lives are through exercise, meditation, fasting, cold plunges or cold showers. But to dial it back to an even more basic and fundamental method is simply by delaying gratification. Stalling the time before we give in to a craving, because craving is pain. While we are feeling that, it's because those gremlins are sitting on the pain side, working to balance the scale back to neutral. So being able to sit with that is in and of itself an exercise in healthy pain. To then highlight the value of that even more, and to quote Dr. Lembke again, going back to the teeter-totter, we know that when we press on the pleasure side, the gremlins hop on the pain side. But the opposite is also true. When we intentionally do things that are difficult or painful in moderation, the gremlins will actually hop on the pleasure side and we'll get our dopamine indirectly by paying for it up front. End quote. This idea brings to mind Thich Nhat Hanh's commentary about the non-toothache. He said, when we're having a toothache, we know that not having a toothache is a wonderful thing. Yet when we don't have a toothache, we're still not happy. A non-toothache is very pleasant. Relief from suffering, pain, or illness can feel like pleasure when we practice the art of noticing. During the Westlock retreat in May, Brother Fap Lu from Plum Village, France, encouraged us to go barefoot during our walking meditation, across gravel, through forest trails, navigating sticks and thorns. It was such an enlightening experience to feel how luxurious the mud and the soft grass felt under my feet at the end of that walk, a feeling that previously had felt slightly uncomfortable. Deliberately causing ourselves some inconvenience or discomfort is a way to alter our perspective. So suddenly something that was once neutral or boring is now joyful, beautiful, and can even bring feelings of gratitude. It stands to reason that monks and nuns living the monastic life seem to find joy so easily in the simple things like walks and tea and sitting. With limited exposure to the highly stimulating experience that is most of our lives, their brain is not working as hard to get back to neutral all the time, with pain gremlins jumping on the balance to keep them level. By living in alignment with the 5th mindfulness training around mindful consumption, they are more in control of the amount of exposure to unnatural and potent dopamine spikers. They live the kind of life that pays up front with self-discipline, and as a result experience the reward of joy and pleasure more organically. I'm not suggesting we have to renunciate our common pleasures and conveniences as lay practitioners, but Having an awareness of the benefits of some healthy pain, slight discomfort, and minor inconveniences in life may help us stay within that state a little longer, and in turn help reset our baseline attention span and tolerance for some of the less pleasant, inevitable parts of life. I have noticed a shift in my perspective since diving into this topic. Now when I'm feeling a craving, I think, oh, that's good. The gremlins are bringing me back to balance. And it helps me successfully wait it out. Or during a feeling of boredom, I remember this is helping to reset my neutral. This feels like a win to me because anything that can help lessen the resistance to the unavoidable suffering of life is worth investigating in my books.